All right, good afternoon, everybody. Our friend David Barnes asked a very good question, an important question. He said that he once saw a shiur, a lecture by Rav David Bar Hayyim, where he essentially said that the Shulchan Aruch, it means the set table, that's the title of the book that we colloquially refer to as the Code of Jewish Law, that basically it was the record of what practices were at the time when it was written. Now, I'm not familiar with this particular lecture. I sometimes have a big problem even listening to Rabbi Bar Hayyim because I disagree so much with him. However, I like to, like I've said before, I like to hear differing opinions, and so I need to listen to Rabbi Bar Hayyim. But this particular lecture I never heard, so I'm not exactly sure what he said. But I will answer Mr. Barnes as follows. We have to understand first of all what the Shulchan Aruch is. And I believe he mentioned there that it was in reaction to the needs of the time. Now, before we had the Shulchan Aruch, we had the Rambam, pretty much is what we had. Yes, we had the Rif, and the author of the Shulchan Aruch himself wrote the Bet Yosef, and before that we had the Torah, which the Bet Yosef is a commentary on. But it is something fundamental about the Shulchan Aruch today that, I remember asking the Satmar Rebbe from Monroe, from Kiryas Yol, how to be a good Satmar Chassid. And he said, Firzech al pi Shulchan Aruch. He said, follow Shulchan Aruch. But conduct yourself in accordance with Shulchan Aruch. And so there's something fundamental, because you don't hear people say Firzech al pi the Torah, Firzech al pi the Rambam, or even subsequent Firzech al pi the Chai Adam, Firzech al pi the Ben Ish Chai, Firzech al pi the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. There's something unique about Shulchan Aruch. However, with that being said, we have to be intellectually honest that most Orthodox Jews don't exactly follow Shulchan Aruch at every point, and I think this is related to what this question is. Now, it's been said that about 90% of the Shulchan Aruch is the Rambam. So that's one part of this story. And most of the things in the Rambam, not everything, the vast majority of what's in the Rambam, in Maimonides, in his code of Torah law, is from the Talmud. He has certain things in there that are actually not from our tradition at all, things that come from Greek philosophy, things that come from the Greek understandings of science, with the Ptolemaic worldview and so forth, and don't come at all from our traditions. Although a lot of people like to imagine, well, if the Rambam said it, so there was some mysterious, Tersha Baal Peh, oral tradition that we don't know where he got it from, but the thing is we know where he got it from. He got it from Greek philosophy and Greek science. But that is what it is. We'll move past those parts. Those things, for the most part, are not in the Shulchan Aruch. Some of it is Hilchos Deos, the laws of your character traits, the way you should think, the way you should. But the Hilchos Yesodei Torah, it's absent in the Shulchan Aruch. And within the Hilchos Yesodei Torah, obviously, there are certain things that are from our tradition and certain things that are not. Most of it is from our tradition. But then again, with that being said, what exactly is this? And why is it not in the Shulchan Aruch? And then you have these subtleties that are mostly like the Rambam, and certain subtle things that are not in the Rambam, and then you have other things that the Shulchan Aruch brought from other earlier sources. That he brought from the Torah, from the Rif, and so forth. That are not in the Rambam. And then we have the Ramah, who's the Mappa, who's the tablecloth on top of the table, with his glosses on the Shulchan Aruch. That's what we have, and the thing is so still, there are occasionally certain things that don't have these earlier sources, and this was the Shulchan Aruch's opinion on things and so forth, or the Ramah's opinion on different things. And even with that being said, there's certain things the Ramah might say or the Shulchan Aruch might say, and then the later commentaries, they'll disagree. Brings a big example I think about in the Ramah is the bracha we say before Shemona Esrei by the Ashkenazim for Mariv, the Baruch Hashem Lo'olam. There's a series of psukim, of Bible verses, and ends with the other prayers and that bracha, and that supposed to take the place of the Shemona Esrei. And the Ramah says you should stand up when you're saying it, ideally, and the other subsequent commentators say you should not stand when you're saying it. And then the others, they say, well, if you're standing, you shouldn't be standing at attention like you're davening Shemona Esrei, but rather face a different direction, and that's what I tend to do. I'll stand in deference to the Ramah, but turn in a different direction in deference to these other opinions. Obviously, the Mechaber doesn't mention this. The minhag of the Sfardim is not to say this bracha. It's not part of their liturgy. And many Hasidim, Chabad and Karl and Stolin, they leave it out. And in Eretz Yisrael, it's pretty much not used because of the influence of the minhag HaGra, because the Vilner Gaon was opposed to saying it, even though he most likely did say it, but he taught that it shouldn't be said. And that influence was very strong in Jerusalem and throughout the Holy Land. So again, when it comes to these types of things, wearing a gartel, it says specifically in Shulchan Aruch that you need to gird yourself with a belt when you pray. But only the Hasidim do it. Or people with some kind of Hasidic background is considered to be like a Hasidic minhag, even though it's plain in Shulchan Aruch. And there's different explanations. One explanation I heard by someone who used to wear a gartel and stopped because he became Sephardi. And for a while he was Hasidic and he became Sephardi. And when he told me, he said, his teacher said, if the minhag says one thing and the Maran says something else, we follow minhag and we don't follow Maran. We don't follow Shulchan Aruch. If the custom is not to. Another rabbi who I look up to, he asked Rav David Yosef about it also. He was Hasidish and he became Sephardi. And he asked Rav David Yosef, and Rav David said they used to wear something like a sash when they would go visit a prominent, dignitary. And that was the, that was the reason, and you would do such a thing when you daven too. And since that's no longer the custom, it's not necessary to do so. But, so, and again, these are examples of things that we don't follow Shulchan Aruch. I mean, except the Hasidim follow Shulchan Aruch there. So the thing is certainly whatever is clearly from Chazal, which is mostly what you find in the Rambam and other things. That's also from Chazal, but you have a Tosfos there. The Gemara says you don't have to, and that's what the minhag became not to. It would seem. So we have this here. Excuse me. And that's a bit of what the answer I have is if we don't certain things, it's not customary to follow Shulchan Aruch. And yes, the Shulchan Aruch did have to answer certain questions when new technologies came out, and it was a question of cooking on Shabbos, and then you get a little later, I was told, that's part of the reason the Shulchan Aruch Harav came out, that the Hasidim, especially the Chabad, they brought out from the Tanya. And but the thing is really still essentially when we have these new things, it's very difficult to have a clear psak, to have a clear ruling on what you have to do. So, we tend to follow what a particular posek says, but the interesting thing is you have certain poskim who have different opinions. And it's not as black and white, not as cut and dry as people think. So, and with a lot of things, you could say you're doing good enough, just follow Shulchan Aruch. There are a lot of things that are curiously missing from the Shulchan Aruch. Why don't we have any mention of the of having a mechitza in a shul? It's not in Shulchan Aruch. So the conservative will say it means you don't need a mechitza. And the Orthodox will say it means the women don't have to go to shul. And it was an issue. So then again, if you go to a shul that doesn't have a mechitza, you're not breaking Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch doesn't talk about it, but we see it's clear that the Satmar Rav and Rav Moshe and other Gedolim held it was actually a biblical obligation, the Chiv D'Oraisa, to have a mechitza in the shul. As I understand it, he wrote it himself, or Avar and Kotler held it as a minig, but it's an important minig that we have to keep. And things like this. So, again, and there are a lot of minhagim brought in Shulchan Aruch. Like we said, wearing a gartel, other things like this. You know, a lot of times, just because something's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch doesn't mean we have to keep it, and just because something is missing from Shulchan Aruch doesn't mean we don't have to keep it. Just because, you know, you don't find anything until much later, until contemporary times, because it wasn't an issue before. And then again, what are some of the issues? You know, generally, the big issue with the shul with no mechitza is not that it doesn't have a mechitza, which is an issue, and I admit it's an issue. But a lot of times, is it a base minas? Is it a house of heresy? Is the clergy leading it even believe in Torah Minishamayim? These types of questions, you know, and that's probably a bigger issue than the mechitza. Something to consider. You know, so I think this is going to be my answer to this question as to what does it mean as far as the Shulchan Aruch. That yes, there are certain things that are missing from Shulchan Aruch that we have to keep, and they're not in the Shulchan Aruch. And there's certain things that are in Shulchan Aruch that we really don't have to keep, but still a good thing to do. And there's a lot in between, and so we have to find a good balance. And you know, you're definitely safe if you're following the Shulchan Aruch. Certainly, when it comes to things that it says you should do, even if it's not customary to do so. But you have to consider what it says. To, you know, is it? You know, is it more than just these questions? So I think, you know, that's what it comes down to. But again, most of the things you're going to find in the Shulchan Aruch, you're going to find them already in the Rambam. You're going to find them already in Chazal and things like that. You should be keeping. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. And the best thing to do is, you have someone to ask these questions to, and to have a rabbi you look up to, and he should have a rabbi he looks up to. You know, even if the rabbi is in his 90s, he might be calling a rabbi in his 60s to have a psak halacha. But you know, and that's just how it is. And to have guidance of how to conduct yourself in a proper Jewish way, and by doing that, then you'd be worthy to have things. And the same thing, if you have a Rav who knows you, who knows your situation, they'll be able to give you answers that are consistent with your situation in life. You know, they might tell you in your situation, you can be lenient on this, but someone else in a different situation should be strict. And that's why it's important to have guidance. But the thing is, you have to understand, when they say you should, it doesn't mean you have to do everything exactly. And sometimes you could ask more than one person, you know. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Come. We'll see you later.